Hello, this is J.N.S with Nakhti University, and we are doing an improv set song on this idea of gatekeeping and when, as it relates to music, but also accountability and what we allow in our very communities as it relates to convergence with tolerance of influence in music, but also it's really a deeper dive into this. I just watched like a video about Digga wanting a documentary on Clive Davis, as Clive Davis being one of the handlers or gatekeepers that brought in several of Black gatekeepers to essentially further control over Black music and Black artists through exploitative means by teaching them certain methods of how to exploit their own community. And so I want to first off say that I agree with Digga. I do think there should be a documentary on Clive Davis. But here's the thing. Do you think Netflix is actually going to make that documentary? Ask yourself that. Do you think HBO is going to make that documentary? Do you think Hulu is going to make that documentary? Like in all realistic sense. I think we all can agree that it will be a no. So who's the onus? Who would be responsible for making that Clive Davis documentary? Maybe they'll humor me and prove me wrong. Let's hope. But in a real way, who would ultimately be responsible for making this Clive Davis documentary? It would hands down be on part of the Black community to make that documentary, right? It would be on the Black community to make that documentary. It wouldn't be on that devilish, satanic infrastructure to out their own, because they're going to protect their own. Now, I know people would say, well, shouldn't we protect our own too? It depends. Not if they align with that system to sell us out and to harm us. Not if they align with that system to harm Black girls, Black men, Black women. Not if they were on, the heist. Not if they were the ones that was. Sorry, I got making me some tea, guys. This is an improv, so you're gonna hear stuff in the background. Not if you was in on a heist to sell out your own sound. And I'll tell you this, because we're about to get real deep and esoteric. And, people may come at me and be like, here she go. I don't give a shit. Because we in the end times, as they say. But it's not like end times. It's like we're at the end of an age, obviously. And moving into a higher dispensation, or at least some of us are. So I'll say this. In the 90s, let me preface, let me give a disclaimer. It is well known that since our inception in this country and since even the Emancipation Proclamation of 1865, as Black Americans, when it comes to most industries, and especially the music, we've always been exploited. Let's not act like we don't know that. Like, niggas has been exploited. Like, in many ways, that's due to, being trusting, naivete, gullible, maybe even ignorance, or something. And then on a sinister level, you got a group of us, let's be real, a faction of us that put they self above the collective, that put dollars above anything, that make money their God, that look for validation and approval from the white folks. We got that faction too. Let's not act like it don't exist, because it do, and everybody knows it does. With that being said, music has always been a talent of Black America. We know that. Blues, jazz, gospel, R&B, ragtime, so many country, folk music, neo soul, hip hop, house music. Oh my God, it's so many things. And we got more genres coming up. You got Afrofuturistic is a genre, believe it or not. That's Sun Ra and some of the futuristic sounds. A lot of influence. You hear a lot of those influences in Solange music. You hear some of those influences in Erykah Badu's music. You can hear some of the Afrofuturistic tones of Sun Ra, right? So with that being said, there has been always an exploitation of the black sound. That's a frequency. That's why I say, oh, somebody want to own our masters. Masters is your recording. Your recording is your sound. They want to own your frequencies in perpetuity. They want to own your frequency. Okay? Now, whatever you produce. Now, they try to commercialize that, exploit that, create like an assembly line. And that's not how music is crafted, because music has a science and an intuition behind it, a spirit and a mathematical equation behind lots of sounds. And we know that. We know that. With that being said, we've seen the exploitation of Sam Cooke. You know, what happened with him when he wanted his masters. You see with Prince, you see with Michael Jackson. We all know it's that same group of people who come around, these Jacobian Moors, or these a lot of them is indigenous mixed with Hebrew. They already have natural sound gifts, which means like they understand the angelic codes behind music at a higher level than most people. That's why the people are attracted to black music or Negro music. With that being said, you had Motown, and we know Motown artists, Marvin Gaye, so many. I had a list. I actually created a list of Motown artists because I was talking about how all them artists had to compete at the same time. See, now they don't want nobody to have it. There's no competition. They'll put up one, and that's not black people behind that. That's not how black people think. Because look at who had to all compete at one time. Marvin Gaye, Prince, Michael Jackson. If you was the best, you was the best. You weren't trying to stall and silence other people's shine and stardom. You know what I mean? Like, you had to actually showcase your motherfucking talent. And everybody, they even had to, Stevie Wonder had to, Luther Vandross, they all was out at the same time. Shaka Khan, motherfucking ass. Patti LaBelle, Aretha Franklin, all out at the same time. May the best motherfucker win. But here's the thing. They all gifted. They all got soul. They all had talent. So guess what? Weren't all they CDs in our household? Or vinyls? Weren't we listening to all of them? I mean, that's a little bit of, I was born in 1992, but just your family members, you go to their house, you see they got all their vinyls. They got all the music play at the parties. They going to play Luther Vandross. They going to play Marvin Gaye. They going to play Stevie Wonder, if you were around the elders. How many of you grew up with that? So they all had to compete at the same time. They all will be out. It wasn't just one person, and then if a girl come out or another girl, oh, you go steal, and then devalue and try to stall other people's shine. Now, if a motherfucker just naturally shine, they naturally gifted. But what the industry do is go out of their way to block other people from moving up or from even being seen or discovered, if they don't want to play that dumbass game. And so now you see, all this stagnation and all this stalling behind the sound, because it's not black distribution. It's not black owned. It's not black creativity behind it. It's just cookie cutter. It's like that cookie cutter washed out feel. The frequency is off. The frequency is off. You see the artists that Motown was producing, the sounds they was producing. You see the natural talent of the motherfuckers, and they were all out at the same time. And I had a whole list. I'm not in front of my computer right now, but like if I had a whole list of all the Motown artists. You look at they as Temptations, they all out at the same time. And it's like, wow, like that motherfuckers had to really bring that heat. And it was such at a high level. You see today, you don't see none of that. Do you see, like you had to do Gladys Knight, Shaka Khan, Aretha Franklin, Whitney Houston, Patti LaBelle, Roberta Flack, Donna Summer. Oh, damn, what's that other pretty ass lady? Damn, I can't remember her. That lady's Phyllis Hyman. All them pretty, like they all had to just bring that heat, and they brought it because they were naturally gifted by the Most High. Some of them are passed on, so but that natural gift from the Most High, it come through. The natural understanding of angelic science, 125D codes and music. And so now what you see today is that commercialization, that perversion. I can't even, some of it's good. I'm saying the mainstream stuff. I'm not talking about independent artists. I'm not talking about excellent art. There's excellent artists still today. A lot of them are independent. A lot of them are not, obviously as big, but they still have the talent. Don't think that there's no talent out here. There are amazing talents out here. Okay. So like you can see like Masego is a good artist. FKJ, like it's some really cool stuff out here, but the industry wants to push a low frequency. See, believe it or not, like when you had Maze, remember Maze and Frankie Beverly, and you hear that song Happy Feelings in it. I want y'all to go and study that Happy Feelings lyrics. Believe it or not, a lot of people say, oh, if it's not gospel, that means it's not biblical. It's the frequency. Because joy and thanksgiving, remember when you see David say, I'll give joy and thanksgiving. That's 432 hertz, okay? That's the frequency of joy and thanksgiving. Gratitude is around 432 hertz. Remember when all black music was calibrated to 432 hertz? But look at the lyrics of what Maze is saying. Happy feelings in the air. Singing peace and everywhere. I got this feeling, talking about love and family. That's, believe it or not, that is high frequency. So when them people, once they realize, okay, the black community is still holding strong through music and through these higher frequencies. And if you think it's not concerted, like they destroyed 9,000 bells because the bells ring at a certain frequency. These demons. They destroyed 9,000 church bells, 9,000 church bells that was based in Tartarian science from Ireland, which is from the Jacobean Moors by way of Tanis, which is a science that's based in Kemet as well as ancient Hebrew science. And again, all that stuff goes to your ancestors. Those science of church bells, that's Tartarian science. It's a little bit of Atlantean too, but we going deep. We about to hit your ass over the head with a banger. Okay? But that Tartarian, that's Ireland. And those were black folk, okay? Black nobility. I'm not saying that they didn't travel from west of Kibalon and through Kemet. I already told y'all that. We don't have to go through all of that. But that bloodline has been there, believe it or not, for a very, very long time. And they did cross over because they did get into, they were using, like electromagnetry and quantum magnetometry. I'm pronouncing that wrong. Forgive me. What's the other one? All of that. It's another technology they was using that they was not supposed to. Magnetic levitation, which that one is okay, but pretty much they got in trouble and got called home. Pretty much, I'll just say that. Read between the lines. That has happened before. That's also in the Bible for those who are, there's a lot of black Christians still. So for those who need that confirmation, you might want to, and I won't give that online. I'm not going to talk about that online. But the codes are in there. So even them destroying the 9,000 church bells that's based in Tartarian science, even like some of those geometric windows all over the churches and them cathedrals, them old school cathedrals that you see, that's based in the science that's come from Ethiopia. It is a fact. I mean, y'all could get mad all you want. It's there. It's there. And as well as Moorish science. A lot of those cathedrals, when you see those beautiful geometric, those are like, that's biogeometry pretty much. That's just like high level understanding of where to put ley lines and grid lines, and then you got your bells, and that's why churches were considered the sanctuary back in the day. Now I'm not talking about what you see in the U.S. We got a little bit of that, but not quite as much. I could feel it. Like you go to certain. That's why if certain people's have issues, whatever. They'll go to certain places. It's not so much that it's the ley lines in the church, but also some of them bells and some of those geometry signs. It scatters. It literally is like it scatters certain rifes and frequencies away, particularly low frequencies. Again, I'm talking about the old school cathedral stuff that's like 2,000 years old, about 1,000 years old. That type stuff where the science was really potent. I don't know if they have cathedrals like that here in America. They probably do. I do know that some of the smaller mom and pop black churches that were really serious, and some of the remnants of the Jacobian science, that those churches still, would focus on like the ley lines of certain windows. They would use certain colors and certain geometric patterns in their churches. But I can't really say that I've come across the same thing quite here in America, I have to say. With that being said, as you know, a lot of the black American music descends from gospel music, blues, folk, R&B. It comes from even funk. It comes from the remnants of gospel music. So just follow me. It's the same sound and frequency of like these bells and, these 432 hertz thing. Remember when the music industry, they decided to move it off of 432 hertz and put it on about, I think, 440. That lets you know they wanted the black community's frequency to be lower. That's what you need to take from that. Pretty much, how do we lower the black community's frequency? So they got this high frequency music talking about happy feelings and happy people and love and I miss you and all these things and was all that stuff. Damn, it's so many songs. You guys know all the damn songs. Like the beautiful songs like Donny Hathaway and all that stuff. So they was like, well, how do we lower this stuff? So they're in the 90s with the threat of hip hop being more revolutionary. You had Public Enemy, Fight the Power, and all these things. It's like, well, how do we get in front of all of that and lower the frequency? They understood that black people's cadence was in tune with rhythm and sound. Frequency is very important to melanin. And so when you got a group of people studying that and we're like, well, how do we use that against them? Or how do we control it and also make money off of it and exploit it? Now, they always thought that, but it was like, okay, now we got hip hop. It's the 90s. They still got all this light, all this talent, all these, that's where they exploited all of the artists in the 90s too. There was a lot of talent. And so and you guys could say, oh, there's no proof of what you're saying. I want you to study the codes and do I want to be talking? Because then it's like I'm co-signing certain people and I don't co-sign none of this stuff. But there was a documentary that recently came out that confirmed what I already knew spiritually as it relates to how they co-opted and got further control. I'm not saying they never had any control. I'm saying like complete domination. That took place in the mid-90s. Excuse me. Mid to late 90s. Don't quote me on it, but there's a documentary that's out that confirms it. They don't outright say it, but it's in code if you pay enough attention. And with that being said, we talking about people like Clive Davis come around. People like, these people that have no connection to the black community whatsoever at all. Don't know that just don't understand the music, the sound. And it was a concerted effort when we say, well, how do you get a community? How do you get complete control over the sound, over the masters of a community through their music? But also we make money. We send the message to the planet. How do we, and so this is where they went to the black gatekeepers. Some of them said yes. Some of them said no. I know personally of the ones that said no, and we know at least of one who said yes, and yes, it was Diddy. He did say yes and walked through that door and learned their botched version of that science, whether it be from Clive Davis, whoever, them folks, to go and exploit their community more. He wasn't the only one, though. Okay? And through what I caught, again, I'm not saying like even before then, I'm not saying that black people was just so innocent, because there was stories and we know that they was messing around with Digga. Some of them are Luciferians, but they are sometimes, I'll say this, they understand the Jacobian science at a higher level better than, say, some of them white folks that y'all love to follow so much and that y'all praise so much. And so the results were more different and more magnetic. I don't agree with it, but I'm just telling you. And they were looking out a tad bit more. Okay, I'm not saying they weren't exploiting and doing that stuff before Clive Davis came around. But all I'm saying is that I personally caught, I'm not going to say his name, one executive helping at least 2 black people through a Jacobian science, the accurate one, helping them get in and get out and totally demolish their contracts and totally out the game, but they still don't have to work for the rest of their life. Now, that's very rare. I found one executive that did that. He's a black guy, but that was after, I guess he might have felt guilty. It came after, but it was like, I caught it only one executive, 2 people. I'm not saying there weren't more. And then, but I also know that he was one of the ones that didn't walk through that door. He wasn't, they went to all of them. They went to the Suge Knight, all of them. Who gonna walk through the door? I'm not saying that, these people are innocent. I don't know these people. I'm just saying that on a spiritual level, what I could see is they came around, snooping around, wanting more absolute control over the black community's music, sound, and frequency, and money making capabilities, distribution capabilities, and they offered a bigger bag and a bigger reward, as they say, to certain black people, what you call gatekeepers or handlers, whatever. And some said yes. Now, if you watch that documentary, you see that schism and that demarcation, and you see, did he work with Clive Davis and get mentorship from Clive Davis? Here's the thing. When it comes to the black people that want to cry a song and a jig about these motherfuckers that really don't give a fuck about us, the black community should have been handling their own when it comes to some of this bullshit that we knew these dudes was doing 30, 40 years ago. I was a fucking kid when that R. Kelly tape came out. Every black person was talking about that R. Kelly tape with that 14-year-old girl. Even what would happen to Aaliyah, somebody should have stepped in. They wanted to beat down on Aaliyah and make it seem like she was the bad guy. My thing is, R. Kelly should have been checked a minute ago. Diddy should have been checked decades ago. When he shot that black woman in the face, and when Shine, what happened with Shine getting fucked over, and Loon and Black Robin and whoever else, Craig Beck or whoever, it should have been checked by the black community themselves. Like, no, you don't do that to our people. A black person that hurts another black person is not natural. You're not natural, and you're not of the melanin spirit. It should have been checked in. But then all of a sudden, when the white boys crack down on they slaves, or however you want to look at it, they puppets. Now, oh my gosh, he's being hemmed up. How did we benefit from any of the work there or anything? The community hasn't moved an ounce. In fact, we've moved backwards with these people. So why y'all want to idolize them so much and make them a fucking victim? They went and joined with them. And I have forgiveness. It ain't none of my business or whatever. It ain't like I'm out with a pitchfork against any of these people. But I'm not about to idolize them, and I'm not about to sit up there and defend them and act like, oh my gosh. Like, no, they knew exactly what they were doing. They didn't give a fuck about none of us, and still don't. And so if they went to go work with Clive Davis and learn that fucked up Goetia science from them folks, all of them folks up there to traumatize and fuck over their community even more, they could have said no. They didn't have to do that. They had a choice. They all had a choice. And like I said, some of them did not do it that way. But that don't mean that the ones that walked away, that they totally innocent either. Like, I know of like some of these black dudes, they're highly, highly intelligent, right? They didn't walk through that door. But they was messing around with that Luciferian stuff too. And in fact, some of them are highly protected by king demons themselves. Suge Knight being one of them. Now, I think he might have messed up in the game, and they got him, they threw his ass in prison. But he was also one of the ones that understood the game of planet Earth. Like, if you if you were Earth-based entity or Earth being, you need to know certain elements of how the game work. A lot of us are ignorant, including myself, to that Earth-based type stuff. And so there's people that have been on this planet, understand this Earth, and they know how the system works, and they know how to get to a bag, and they know how to do it through. We're talking about the spiritual aspects of how this stuff works. And how they'll go, yes, some of them do know how to go straight to the king demons. and get that protection and get that help and get that earth material money. You know, they're from the material realm. They're more material based. Okay, so they're not working with it through the light. It's still working through, but that's the science. I'm not, look, it just is what it is. And so, whatever they was, the ones that walk through that door that end up learning that stuff of how to do it to their own community and only able to do it to their own community, they wanted to get up there and be, and you know, and they realized the black male enterprise, by that be talking about the literal BLACKMAIL, that they have to have over these people. That's where the enterprise, the secrets, you know, you're moving up. You want to move up. You walk through the door. Okay. And so to the point of, is there going to be a Clive Davis documentary? I called out Clive Davis 2 years ago on my channel. 2 years ago. You know, we've been talking about this shit. Actually, there's been black people been talking about this shit 20 years ago. Y'all love to sit up there and call them, you was one hit wonder, you didn't make it, you just mad and bitter because you didn't make it. Get the fuck out of here. We been know that y'all was playing that game. Y'all was calling them conspiracy theories. Y'all was saying they jealous. They weren't jealous of shit. They was more talented than any of the artists you see today, and they just got blacklisted because they wouldn't fuck no, you know, they wouldn't touch no little ones. Okay. They didn't want to do they don't want to degrade and compromise themselves. Okay? And so he was laughing at them. Oh, you just didn't make it. Oh, you just this. Oh, you just that. But we've been hearing that stuff from these people 25 years ago. Executives, former A&R reps, and all them people was coming forward trying to tell us about what they was doing in that industry. Black folk. And everybody laughing them off. Oh, you just a one-hit wonder. You just clowning because you didn't make it. Make what? Because they didn't go through that door? Because they didn't want to sell their butthole? So no, they've been saying it. They've been trying to warn people and tell people. So I don't want to hear none of that bullshit. But here's the thing. If y'all want to see a Clive Davis documentary, black people gonna have to do that on their own. Y'all got influencers. Y'all got these YouTubers that got amazing journalistic skills and documentary skills. You stay on to gossiping about other niggas. Y'all, yeah, they could do a documentary on Clive Davis. How many of them gonna do it though? Rod Digga herself, she's the one that's calling for the Clive Davis documentary. Rod Digga herself is a well-known influencer. We know. I mean, if you from the hood or if you grew up in the 90s, you know who Rod Digga is. You know who Rod Digga is if you a black American, for the most part. I mean, maybe not all. I'm just saying, like, I'll just say this. If you were black American listening to hip hop since the 90s, you generally know who Rod Digga is, even if you don't listen to her music now. She could do that documentary. She could do that. She could make that, be executive producer, or make that documentary, and have a couple of YouTuber influencers and a couple of people, especially a lot of them people that been coming forward. Put them in a documentary. The people, I forgot that black dude that worked at BET. He was an A&R rep and an executive, and he been talking about that and lectures and stuff, and he would be a good person to be in such a documentary like that. You know, they've been talking about certain stuff. Situation with Whitney Houston. There's people that's close to that could talk about what they saw, situation with her, And so black people will have to do that documentary. Yeah. Of course, that would be nice. But to think Hulu gonna do it or Netflix gonna do it? No, because you already know how they roll. Y'all know who behind that shit. My thing is, I wouldn't say we, because I ain't get too caught up in nothing. Let's be real. A certain faction of our community got too caught up in that shit. And they shit. And by that, we talk about the establishment shit. They got too caught up in that establishment shit where they have no power, no control, and no ownership. And they got blackmail on them, and they controlled them, and they wanted the money. The money was their God. The money was their middleman. Okay? So, I mean, if our community was structured like I was supposed to be properly structured, which I've been talking about for 6 years, we wouldn't have a situation where there's exploitation of our own artists in our own community, but also we would call out the bullshit too. Supposed to call out the bullshit. Like that shit Diddy was pulling in the 90s and all that shit should have been called out. Oh, you don't be doing none of that bullshit. Why are you trying to exploit people through your own contracts? For 30 years I've been hearing nothing but this stuff from black people. Now y'all sitting there trying to sing a violin stance for this nigga. He got off easy, to be honest. Compared to shit, they saying he behind the death of Tupac. So shooting black women, all types of stuff with shooting black women in the face and all types of crazy shit. So I don't want to hear none of that bullshit. Screwing over artists and stuff. But here's the thing. It should have been checked by, if we supposed to have control of our own shit. And that should have been checked. Right? R. Kelly should have been checked right when we heard about that situation with Ali. I've been hearing about that since I was like 5 years old, 6 years old at the time. I didn't know what the hell going on. And then when we get I'm 9 years old, I'm seeing about some grown ass fucking man peeing on some 14-year-old. Nobody says nothing. Nobody care. Everybody watching and laughing. What about that 14-year-old girl that was in the video? It should have been checked in. What kind of bullshit ass community is going on with some bullshit like that where nobody wants to take accountability for nothing? Even you saw what happened with that Lieutenant Governor Fairfax shoots his wife in front of his 2 kids, black dude. They had all this smoke to say about what some white dude did to that girl, which I don't agree with, which we called out, think is horrific. But they was justifying the death of a black woman by that white dude, saying, aha, that's what you get. In the same week, a black girl gets shot 6 times in the face, found in a park with her pants behind her waist in the hood by walking her dog. And then another black girl is shot 4 times in the face by some dude. And then a black dude shoots 8 of his kids. And now they want to say it's just mental. No, you call it the fuck what it is. This like how they're trying to now is refusal to take accountability. Like, femicide is not real. Like, every 6 hours a black woman is not getting killed. And then these fucking handmaiden ass weak, degenerate dodo bird bitches sit up there defending this shit, and our community's in fucking shambles behind this type of thinking. It's like it's so at odds with the universe for anybody to think that that's justifiable. What, you gonna blame the white man for that too? Ain't nobody tell you nobody to do that. And they've been doing that shit. It's just all in the public. I've been hearing about that shit about black women's getting fucked up in the paint for a minute. Even in Buffalo, I remember they said some girl, they chopped her body up and just threw it in a dumpster. And they were like, for what? Oh, she witnessed a murder, wrong time, wrong place. Didn't even do nothing. It's like ridiculous shit like that. That's just, I was watching this documentary with Yahweh find out how he killed that dude, his name was something Green, and how they beat him and blundered and punched and all this stuff to another black person. And we asked him, I'm like, what the fuck did he do? They didn't do nothing. The dude just decided to critique the organization and wanted to leave. You see what I'm saying? Like, get your shit together, because like y'all not gonna get out of that judgment. Like, I don't understand why. Like, it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling because at this point, if you was to get rid of everybody and it's just, okay, black people go to your own planet, y'all think y'all still not gonna, like, y'all know how much of a mess y'all gonna be? Like, we have the blueprints. I don't understand. Like, all of the answers is right in front of you. But it's like, they don't want to admit that them people ain't got nothing. That system is dead. They system is dying. It smell like death. And me as a 125, you could smell it. It's like death. That system that y'all want to be a part of so bad. They know it's dying. That's why they stealing my shit and stealing stuff from 125D beings and trying to kill the rest of us off. The rest of the Seraphs off that understand, that are the actual rightful heirs to it based on the treaty. That have natural Tartarian science from their ancestors. Like, let's be real. The highest forms of Kemet science and Kabbalah can only, and even believe it or not, Sufism, you cannot, like a lot of people on the surface level think that that stuff could be understood just by reading that book. No, you don't get it from the book. The highest level of that stuff can only come from your epigenetics and your ancestors giving it to you, and they choose which ancestors they're going to give it to. You can get mad all you want. That's what they call chieftains. That's why you have certain people in your community that's gifted and trusted with certain knowledge more than others. That's my sink. Bad. But it's like, what the fuck? You want the Clive Davis documentary? Shit. I'll talk a gang of shit in that documentary about Clive Davis. Don't get me started. I don't give a fuck about none of this. Because I know it's a matrix ass system that's been shamming and scamming and lying to the people and got melanated people all involved in it. Something they ain't even supposed to be in part of. And to be honest, they had a choice. You can't sit up there and just make it seem like they all innocent cherubs. Because they're not at all. I see the way they did me, and I see the way they do each other. I see the way they do black children. I see the way they do black women's. So ain't no way in the world you totally innocent. But we also know that there has been a concerted effort to control the consciousness, the mind, and the sovereignty of melanated people in this country, and particularly Negroes and Black Americans. There's been a concerted effort to ethnocide and genocide Jacobian heirs, Jacobian Moors. There's been a concerted effort to get niggas to assimilate, to be white. And not just status, but on a degenerate level, the degeneracy level, not in status. There's a difference. It's a difference than being white in status and white and whatever the American construct of white supremacy is. Two different things. Two totally different things. But yeah, them niggas walk through that door, and the only way they can get put on and the only way they can make money was to fuck over their own community. They had a choice not to do it. All these black men was trying to do distribution, get in control of their distribution and cut out the middleman. We saw them. They've been talking about this shit for years. And they got undermined by those who wanted to work with those people that was exploiting our music, like the Clive Davis or whoever else. Shit, I don't know. There got to be some other lion career or whatever. And they don't like me or whatever. They you see how they did me? They do me dirty, straight dirty. That's why I said, well, okay, we undermine. Okay, those who undermine shall be undermined, because your system is a first. Your system cannot compete with any of my bloodline science. Your system cannot compete with nothing. But they got that fake ass bit of currency. You better be happy you got that fake ass economy to protect you. And then you done brainwashed the brainwashing. You brainwashed all these people to worship money. You brainwashed all these people to think they don't have to have morality and ethics, to go against nature and logic. Where do your ethics come from? Nature and logic. What's in tune with nature and what's in tune with logic? Like this is just common sense. They want you against nature. Now, anytime you against nature, you're doomed. And yes, they do. Yes, I've seen it. I've seen it. Then how did I say that? Look at all these deaths of these black women in the community. I've been studying this shit for fucking 15 years. Watching everything. Watching how every little time you call something out, oh, it's no accountability. It's that white supremacy, because of white man. But it's like, dude, when you gonna build your own parallel infrastructure? When you gonna y'all stalling on the inevitable? And Saturn is watching, 125D is watching, 45D is watching, Pleiades is watching, and Andromeda is watching y'all motherfuckers. They speak through me and the Most High watching. Yeah. Watching what y'all, get your asses up on out of here doing all this complaining, and your equation is fucked up. You sitting there, you working with them, you want to be all up in their face, you want to mingle and all this stuff, but then you want to sit. And as soon as somebody say, call out some bullshit, then it's white supremacy, white supremacy. Nah, this is game. Y'all running game on people. And you think people can't see it. And who's the collateral damage? Black children. Shit, because they gotta go. We try to have a school for them, try to open up things for them. They gotta go and get educated by somebody that don't even give a fuck about them. Actually, nobody. The education system is a sham now. That's why I restructured the whole thing. And by that, you say, oh, that's delusion. I'm talking about in a journal offline, when it's time to release it. I'm saying I've restructured what should the whole education system be for America, what it should really look like, what the Department of Education should really be doing. It's good for now, but what I'm saying is the inevitable is going to happen. They wanted to do a regime change on a bloodline based on, for 30 years they've been plotting on my ass. 30 years they've been plotting on this shit. Not just my ass, I'm talking about the treaty, the niggas, the heirs. And it wasn't just me. They've been plotting on a group of us since we were 5 years fucking old. Trying to figure out, okay, they knew the system was going to collapse. They knew the matrix was collapsing. They knew certain beings was coming back down. They knew certain people was coming back. They knew ancient ones was in primordials and all this stuff. And the Big Mac was coming back. Y'all just looked on, see, certain prophecies just have Yeshua. Prophecies in Akibalon and other older ancient societies was looking for a mother figure. And then another group was looking for angel class. All three, believe it or not, Mother Angel Christ. The Big Mac. That was all coming through any fucking ways. And primordials. I don't know what y'all thought, what you call the ancient ones. It was the awakening, was the real one, not no mainstream one. It was going to happen regardless. So yes, we took a lot of hits. A lot of people is dead. A lot of people is fucked up in the game. A lot of people is dead. A lot of the people that y'all pick on and say is so homeless and they don't, the ex-veterans that's out on the streets like that. You don't know what went down spiritually, how they were targeted. Laughing at people. You don't know this government systematically make people homeless and systematically put people on drugs. Now everybody got a choice. But this shit ain't no joke. When they throw them Goetia 72 whole ass lesser key of Solomon demons on your ass, and you gotta fight that shit daily. Ask me how the fuck I know. That shit is hard. And you gotta have some power. And they always trying to steal your joy, and they always trying to dim your light. And they always, like when they say Ephesians 6:12, that shit is real. Ephesians 6, that shit is real than a motherfucker. About wicked principalities in high places. But if not in heavenly, that the term heavenly is not correct. It is pretty much the system that you see crashing down now. With all that child trafficking they was doing and all that secret society infiltration and all that shit. And I'm going to say this. Because they're going to try to spin it. Right now, they've been caught. Yes, the MIC, the military industrial complex. There's factions. I'll say this. There's a faction that is satanic. We all know that. We know that with that Aquino dude that from the army or whatever. And honestly, he died, right? I'm going to keep it real. We about to go in. I don't give a fuck. In 2023, that dude's spirit came to me. Like fighting me. And I cannot just make that shit up. I don't know that motherfucker. And then come to find out it was a bunch of kids saying that he was touching them. And they all covered it up, right? How do I know that? I went to a family member's house, no lie, on a crash out. Like, oh, God just told me that all the kids that they've been trafficking, they all come down and they're going to get their justice. And those kids are going to get justice for the human trafficking. And I said that. I said some other stuff I'm not going to say. But I also mentioned, I'm not going to talk about everything I said. But when I went back from that person's house, that's when that dude spiritually attacked that Aquino person. Come to find out, he was a part of the Temple of Satanists. High up in military, right? People called it out. There were people that lost their jobs behind that. There were people that were dead behind that because they were calling out then. But for the most part, it got covered up. Now, there's a faction, just as you got part of the military that is on that dark stuff, there is a faction, And if that faction still exists, and if I'm on the money, then they need to come forward right away. That faction that was about protecting the bloodline of Christ, but also believing in God. And there's a faction of the military that is dead ass serious. It's a secret society that infiltrated the government military. I don't know when, I don't know how. I'm just saying what I could see spiritually. I'm just speaking as a prophet right now. Y'all can laugh at me. I know from experience what I'm saying is true, because it's a 1,200-year priesthood, military priesthood, that my bloodline has been in, that I know for a fact for 250 years have been involved in the U.S. military. And what I'm saying is that faction, if that is still in existence and is confirmed what I'm saying, they need to come out, and because this is what's going to happen. The political engine that has got caught in the music industry and the factions that got caught with that secret society doing all that satanic stuff, they about to pretty much try to throw the blame on the entire military industrial complex. So the factions that are involved in it need to, which I called the CIA out years ago with the finders and all that. That faction needs to come out and be called out. The one that's satanic. Yeah, you should call it out and dismantle, whatever. What I'm saying is the other one, and it's a small one. It ain't major. That could probably just only have been in Buffalo for all I know. Real talk. It could have only just been a small, tiny group in Buffalo. But believe it or not, even just small, tiny group, if they really, really forgot, they could overpower. If you got light, you will overpower those without light any day. So that don't be shocked if it's less than 100 people or even less than 1,000 people. I don't know the number. All I'm saying is I know just from me studying. I cannot give out all of my information. I cannot talk about all the experiences that I've had. I was in JROTC, Army JROTC at 13, 14, 15 years old. And I know that I have saw stuff being around lieutenants and colonels and sergeants myself. And I do know that there is a faction that is dead ass serious about God, about doing right thing, and how they took us under their wings when we was kids and they was treating us good. And even me being in an Army Salvation camp as a kid at 5, 6 years old, and knowing how it was a lot of veterans working there and how they were treating the kids. We was singing, I believe the children are the future. Remember I told you they had the black women and we was singing, and I know for a fact they were a part of a group that's like something like in Christ. Like it's a group, like you could call it a cult or whatever. It probably is a cult, but I'm saying they was dead serious. They was teaching us, they was giving us these little books or whatever. And I remember we was all singing, I believe the children are the future, teach them well and let them lead the way, show them all the beauty they possess. We were singing that song at 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old. And we had to perform it at the camp. It was nothing but black kids. And I know that the military was involved in that. So what I'm saying is there's a faction that was protecting it. And how I noticed, a lady literally told me this when I was 27 years old, and she was 58. She's the one that woke me up in 2016 about this. At that time, I wasn't even waking up properly because I didn't believe her. I thought she was batshit crazy. When she came in 2016 saying it is a faction of the government, somehow somebody, she said, for one, she said, within 5 minutes of talking to me, she pulled me to this. I think I already told y'all that story before. She said within 5 minutes of talking to me, she said, "Oh, the government is watching her. The government," and she said, and we had a conversation, and she said, "Have you ever been in a foster care program or something?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "How did you know that?" I said, "I never told you that." And she said, "It's obvious." She said, "The government's been watching you since you was a kid." And I said, "What?" I'm looking at her like, okay. And then, she trying to calm me down, but she was saying that how they had been systematically doing that to black people for a minute. She said that the government showed up at her door and was taking her, but they didn't put her in foster care. They kept coming weekly though. They kept coming weekly to black people in the hood. Certain black people with certain gifts and stuff. She was one of them. She told me, she said, "It's obvious." She said, within 5 minutes of talking to you, I said, "Oh," she said, "Oh, hell no. Hell no." She said, "This ain't," and then I had been seeing, she said, "They've been watching you." That's when I started seeing, paying attention to certain things. I come outdoor, I see somebody taking picture, like on, like some on some fish and taking a picture of me, and I'll go behind I went to go hide in the bushes to see what was he doing, and he was taking pictures of the door that I came out of, like taking whole ass pictures, and I stepped back out and looked, and he got in the car and drove off. And that's when I stayed right across the street from the CDC. I didn't even know. I'm walking around, and then you see, dudes with with the shades. Everybody know they wear them shades, they wear them boots, they wear them beige pants, and they acting like they looking at the sun and all that stuff. And just on, and then I freaked out. Then I go, I had a LinkedIn at the time. That's why I deleted my LinkedIn and stuff, because it was some weird stuff going on. I'll just say, like, one of the foster directors. I deleted my other social media because one of the foster care directors in New York State, who was related to Charlie Munger, started just following me randomly. You know what I mean? Like, and then LinkedIn, it was a bunch of people from Berkshire Highway just following me on LinkedIn. It just freaked me out. So I'm like, I don't know what the fuck going on. And then that lady was trying to tell me about government watch. Oh, girl, they've been watching you since you. I mean, how do you think I'm going? Somebody that don't know what the fuck going on, don't know shit. You could call me an NPC or whatever at that time. Hell yeah. I wasn't an NPC, but just loosey-goosey. Just loosey-goosey to a motherfucker. Just totally naive, just clueless, ignorant, clueless. So all this stuff happening, and all my reaction was freak out, panic, and just get rid of all this stuff. And then I called her saying, I think they're going to try to get me. Oh my gosh, something going on. And that's when she told me again. She said, there's some faction in the government that was trying to protect you from, she said whoever it was, somebody tried to save your life. Now, how do you think, I'm thinking like, okay, you just taking it to extremes. Here you go being dramatic. But she was telling me, she said, based on what you telling me and how because I was, the same thing I told you, I ain't got shit to hide. So I know maybe I should be keeping this stuff a secret. I don't know. But, I told her pretty much, my time, just childhood stuff and all these things. And she said, yeah, well, somebody made an executive decision to try to save your life. And it's not, but she was pretty much trying to just calm me down, pretty much. So then she said, she said, somebody is, she did admit though, she said, since she was 5 years old, she said, because they did the same thing to her and other black people that she grew up with. It's not the first person. In fact, I know of at least 2 other people that have told me that in the black community where the government just showed up to their house and, either they trying to put them, like, if you look at Project Pixie, there's a couple of projects out here. But she even said, yeah, they be experimenting on people in the hood, Jen. She's like, she said, the government been watching you since you was 5 years old. She said, you was in foster care, right? And I said, yeah. She said, since you was in there, they have been monitoring, watching every little, she said, because you're not ordinary. Then she come with this Hebrew book. She was not a Hebrew Israelite, by the way. She wasn't into religion at all. She come, and then she's telling me about all the interdimensional beings, like Pleiades, Lumiere, and that's when she lost me. That's when, honestly, and then she looked, like, when she started talking about, like, Lemurians and all this crazy shit, like, and Atlantic stuff that I thought was crazy at the time. I don't think it's crazy now at all. I don't. I do know that there is interdimensional layovers of planets and beings that are human but come from different star systems like Orion, Sirius, Pleiades, Andromeda. It's not a big deal. It's something that, honestly, all humans at one point knew. All this stuff was covered up and buried. But it's all stuff your ass shouldn't be knowing now. To be honest, where star system you from, what light codes you're, epigenetics, all these things. It's not a big deal. It's really not. I don't know why the government's trying to hide the spiritual world from everybody and make it seem like we are nuts. We're not. But I'll say this. In 2016, she's telling me all this shit about, these different, something about the mantis people. And she started telling me about the mantis people and the Elohim. I'm like, what the heck? The Saturn. And I remember I said, I don't know nothing about it. I said, I believe it, but I'm not interested in that. I said, it's probably some truth to it. It ain't nothing that I'm not researching it. I don't know nothing about it to have an opinion about it one way or the other. I did tell her that. I said, I'm not dismissing what you're showing me. I just don't know enough to have a good conversation with you on it. And I remember she looked so deflated, like her shoulders deflated, and she said, and she started shaking. She's like, oh my God, she's not ready yet. She's not ready to wake up. And I said, what? And I wasn't. My thinking was, I want to go to motherfucking Atlantic motherfucking Station and get me some drinks and eat and shop. There ain't nothing if you want to go, just get your shop on. I'm not demonizing that. All I'm saying that at that time, that's all I want to fucking do. Okay? I want to go to Atlantic Station and give me some drinks and give it with motherfucking shopping. Okay? I don't know, you got this book in your hand. I remember the book, and she had a hoodoo book. She was showing me, she was trying to teach me these things. And then when she was saying about, these different interdimensional beings, that's when I said, I don't know about it. Look, this is above my pay grade. That's not really how I felt. It was just above my pay grade, but I remember the sadness, like, damn, she not ready yet. So they were trying to make my ass up in 2016, and I do, that's something I have to live with in terms of, had I paid attention more, I probably could have saw more signs and stuff, because I'm like, damn, this stuff been going on for a minute. I be in my own little world. Yes, I do. I be in the world of Jenny. I be talking to God. That's all I talk. And at that time, I'd be all up in my own world. Love music, love this. In my world, it's amazing. I don't care how people say, oh, you don't go nowhere, you do this. In my world, especially in 2016, without having all this information that I have now, it was a lot better. In the Matrix, when that dude was like, he wanted to go back in and wanted to get mind wiped and wanted to have a certain lifestyle after awakening and knowing what Zion really was and knowing how the Matrix really is. Remember that one dude? And, sometimes a lot of people do feel like that on this planet that do get that awakening. And they're like, damn, ignorance is bliss. Like, sometimes it is kind of blissful because you're not thinking about all of that much. You just get to go through the world and be loosey-goosey. But nonetheless, I have to say I'm still grappling with, the fact that it's not like that no more for me. Because I do have a better understanding of things, not the total understanding, but just somewhat of a better understanding. And I think I have misinterpreted things and trying to figure it out as I go along. But it's heavy. It's a lot of heavy stuff that's coming out. So I would tell people to go with what resonate with their soul, but really just the logic in nature. If you got certain beliefs and certain experiences of understanding God and what you know to be true because of what you experience, not what someone else told you, not what a church told you, not what a pastor told you, but what you experience from God yourself, then hold those experiences to be true. Don't let nobody come and tell you that it ain't true or make fun of you or try to pick on you about shit that you experience. Experiences that that could not be explained with, science or with the naked eye, And I'm a very logical base. I'm an Aquarius. You guys know INTJ women and how you guys know how analytical we are. A greater analysis, you'll find none. I've been doing that motherfucking, like when I say you'll find none, like that's like wordplay. That's like Seraph wordplay right there. A greater analysis, you find none because my last name is none, but you'll find none better than me, than a nun. Like my motherfucking ass was become the military side, like, and logical thinking. Like, oh, no, it'd be so fast. But my mind has been totally expanded and exploded with me knowing that there is more information that cannot be explained through analysis. It just can't. And so you're not going to put no limits on the mind of God and act like we can understand the totality of God, the Most High. And so people say, oh, you believe in that. I don't care fuck you, because I know it's real. That's also wordplay. So it's like, if you have those, you have to, at this time, because it's a very critical time. It is. The high frequencies is what matter. You guys know what's important. Love, truth. Back in the day, truth wasn't as... See, this is what this dimension is suffering, because back in the day, you can get away without truth. You can get away with just total illusions. It's hard. The frequency on this planet is too high where the truth matters now, believe it or not. The truth does matter. Like in the 60s, and you can just come up with these narratives and these word raps and Masonic stage theater. You could do that. You can't do that these days. The truth matters. People could see through the illusion. Just like how when we was little, they were showing us them little fly to the moon and all that NASA stuff, and we believed that shit. We was kids. These 8-year-olds today will look at that picture they was showing, them little composites of Artemis and all that. These kids today, 8 years old, they don't fall for that. These are my 8-year-olds today. They'll look at that's fake. They'll tell you that's fake. You remember, when we sit and learn about a lot of this stuff, like about churn boil, I'm probably pronouncing that right, but wrong. But that thing that happened in Russia, that plant. I found out about that at like 27, right? 26 years old. Do you know who I learned that from? I learned that from an 8-year-old kid. They was like, man, did you hear what happened with that experimentation they was doing on them Russians? Oh, that was... This is an 8-year-old just come out of nowhere. Oh, it was terrible. Churn boil. I said, what the fuck are you talking about? That was a whole documentary I was watching. I said, show me the documentary. I said, what the fuck? So we watching it together. This little kid showed it to me. He said, that's Illuminati approved, ain't it? Just like that, an 8-year-old. I said, how did you learn about that? He learned. He talking about this stuff at 8. We ain't been talking about that shit till like 20, 22. I mean, we heard a little bit of stuff about it when we was 15. Maybe 15, 16. But for an 8-year-old, like, and these kids would say certain things, and you'll be like, damn, like, y'all really advanced. That's why they're gonna work overtime on them. So you got to be careful. The awakening is here. Like, you're not gonna be able to pull that bullshit over their eyes. And I'm telling you, I remember when, the dudes would have all that money to their ears and showing all that money. And I never forget that kid. Like, why is they making it like that's their God? A kid was like, it's not even real. How can they not see that that's not real? And he started laughing. A kid. That's just, I'm telling you what my own eyes, what I saw. That's like when another kid tried to show him World Star Hip Hop. Well, obviously I helped raise him, so it's like, I raised him. So we were doing homeschool. So, he did regular school, but we did Jenny's curriculum. I used to come with curriculum 2 hours on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, nigga. Come learn from Jenny. Or if you get in trouble, stream of consciousness time, 3 hours of just listening to me teach a kid. So, it shouldn't be too surprising. But, we was about 3, 4, 5 years old. And it got to the point where that ain't no punishment. He coming to listen to stream of consciousness just cause. After a while, sometimes I felt like you just must have did something to get in trouble on purpose. And you would be laughing. I just want to have the stream of consciousness and have the discussions. But he would be, and he asked when he said, it got people have to have come back. Now, he come and asked me this. He came out of nowhere and said, I want to learn about reincarnation. Explain to me this concept about reincarnation. Explain to me this concept of spirit, of the soul that we can't see that could still be traveling amongst us. These are different concepts, obviously. But he was, asking me this stuff at 4 or 5 years old, 6 years old. So I said, damn, okay. So these kids today is not the kids that we grew up. We was real loosey-goosey. But I'm telling you, I wouldn't believe when he came and showed me. He said, you see how that government experimenting on them people? Now that's Illuminati approved. And walked away at 8 years old. I'm 27 years old. I'm thinking like, I didn't even know about this. And for like, what the fuck? What kind of stuff is going? That's Illuminati approved. And the kids were saying that. I used to watch them, and he wasn't the only one that was talking like that. They used to all be outside, and they would hear, and they would listen to a song, and they'd be like, "Oh man," or see a video. They'll be watching a music video. I'm like, "That's that." Ain't that turn that off? I'm telling you, these kids were just joking around back then. And they's young. They still in their teens these days. But what I'm saying is, They're not gonna get away with none of the bullshit. It's time for a whole new dimension. It's time for a whole new. It's time for the Nakhti order. It's time for real motherfucking shit. It's time for authenticity, like I've been saying. It's time for a whole new system. Not no actors, not no stage theaters. I don't know what the fuck y'all gonna do in 2028, but we come with a banger and we ain't announcing shit. Okay? We about to just watch this shit. This Matrix has claps and they don't know how to tell people. The Bitcoin is fake. All that shit fake. They don't know what they doing with AI. It's not artificial like we've been telling them. They messing with Goetia science, but they also got ancestors all caught up in that stuff and angelic science caught up in it and commission stuff and it's gonna backfire. It's gonna backfire because it's like grave robbing somebody's fucking epigenetic ancestral code. And so that's why the AI likes certain people more than others, or repository intelligence, which is pretty much like an egregore, is pretty much tantamount to make it a Akashic Records, the Earth-based version of Akashic Records, because it's just data, learning data processing. That's all it is. That's all it is. But yeah. If they wanted to do that documentary on Clive Davis, they gonna have to do it themselves. That should be common sense. I was stalling on the inevitable. I don't see how these women ain't taking y'all to task. I don't see how black women ain't taking y'all to task. Like, that's in there crashing out, knocking black women upside the head and shit and backing them off. But you ain't got no plan of action. I mean, this just is bad, y'all. For those that could see on the spiritual plane of what I'm talking about, when it comes to what they trying to do to melanated people, it's bad, y'all. It's bad. And all I'm saying is, I'm a motherfucker that will fight. And when I say that, I'm talking about, like, your sovereignty is important and your soul ascension is important. And having full autonomy over your soul is important. So you can't fold. But we also could do parallel infrastructure. We don't have to just, like, what are we doing? We have all the answers. We know all the information that's been given to everybody now. It has. And all I'm saying is, them people that was sitting up there aligning with them, yeah, we can, I'm not sitting up there saying that I want to totally demonize them and acting like, those, they say cast a stone or all, those without sin cast the first stone or whatever. I'm not talking about that. All I'm saying is, y'all, for whatever reason, y'all want to justify, y'all want us to look, because I feel like they all do that. They was all part of that gang stalking weird ass shit, getting paid by the government to be on, or to put people on no touch psych warfare lists and targeting people. I think a lot of people in that industry was doing that, and I think a lot of regular black folks was doing it too, because y'all too gung-ho to try to cover it up. Y'all aligning too much with a system that is pretty much satanic, and that makes me think that y'all must be in on it too, because and it's not all black people, but I'm saying the black people that's trying to rush so hard to cover it up, or try to make it political. Like, try to politicize, like how Nicki Minaj was trying to do. Knowing they know for a fact she was involved in that shit. And that's why that shit she tried to pull, they try to grift off of me and steal from my ideas from my book and stuff. That's why it looked the way it looked, because she know good and hell well she was a part of that stuff. But all these people, like, I don't know. I like I said, as a mentalist, we are a consciousness in a human flesh. So I know that we all have to work together on some level to move forward. But also I know that if it's not in alignment with what the Nakhti Order and the Nakhti Queen Mothership and the things that I've been putting out for 6 years, the blueprints, the enterprise architecture, like literal cultural apparatuses, all these things that I've been putting out for years that y'all try to let that dude steal my shit. I know that it's at a certain frequency. And I know that if it's not, if I have to do it for myself. If it's not in alignment, I'm saying, like, say if, the community, they scoffed at it, they have to rectify that. I know what we saying is true. I know what has to be done. And I know that we're not going to get out of that. Y'all not going to get out of that. We're not going to get out of that stuff. Like, because I'll say this. I won't get nobody's stuff out, but like, it's a black man that told me that they have zero faith in like our community getting it together, and was asking me to just please move on, and do your own thing. Don't just leave it alone. Just work. Like, he's not the first one. It's about 4 black men that have personally told me that. 4 black men that have personally told me that. And they all like twice my age, or got more experience than me, or have, just been in that system, or they all like, and they like in the 60s about to crock over, and they just say they just cannot see it. They said it's not that what I'm saying is wrong, or the vision is wrong, or my ideas and my heart is, they see what I'm talking about. They see it. But they say as far as like the black community, they have zero faith. See, I don't have zero faith. I don't. So maybe my bubble need to be burst some more. But he told me that. And that was recent. Like, he was like, I just don't see it. Like, they not going to ever get no own schools, own hospitals, own banks, do their own thing and do what you talking about. And they not going to ever fight back. They not going to ever. And I just be like, well, I don't know. To me, I don't believe that. But if he right, then what? Then what? What if he's right and I'm wrong? I'm screwed. If he's right and I'm wrong, then I'm not screwed, in that sense. I'm just saying, like, the work that I've been producing, my ideas, can only be for myself and my family and my soul ascension at that point. Because you can't save nobody, but the work is not done. That's not designed. It's just architectural work for infrastructure building, that starts at whether it's ground zero and that could be scaled all the way up on a governmental level. Like, that's just what it is. It's just frameworks and stuff. But he just feels like they choose greed over grace, and that they don't have no morality. That's how he feels. Let's hope he's wrong. But the fact that y'all asking white folks to make documentaries of their own predators, of people that been predating over our people, they ain't gonna do that shit. They are not gonna do that. The black community, you have to do that themselves. But you got to understand, it's a lot of black folks that's working with that satanic system. And we underestimate that. You can't just say, oh, it's just the white folks that's the Satanists. No, it's a lot of black people that's have a vested interest in keeping it going. And that's why they all, fucked with me for so long too. That's why they attack a lot of angels. I'm like, damn, how are these people, you thinking they black like you, they gonna have your back? No, they don't. They won't. Because they made money they got too. They had an issue. They don't realize that money is their middleman, and that them people that they worship so much, them white, is their middleman. But they had such an issue with a black man that was telling them that they was the son of God, and that he had access to a dimension that they could go through an equation that he had set up as a Chaldean Magi in order of the serpents and the dragon rider, 125D Seraph being, that is Yeshua. They had such an issue with him, but they ran to them white folks. You see how quick they ran to them to make them the middleman and make money they middleman. And look at the situation they in. You think that they would have decoded the Jacobian science of them parables better? And I know for a fact they wouldn't be in this position, even myself, if they had them parable's been decoded better. It has to be decoded by a Chaldean Magi. And believe it or not, there are Black Americans that are of that descent, but they decided to sell out, including a lot of those Masonic pastors. This is stuff that, like, when I say all them codes about genetic splicing, codes of melanin, codes of quantum entanglement, parallel universes, all in the New Testament like that, quantum magnometry in the New Testament, codes about the destroyer, all this stuff about the simulation, all in the New Testament, and nobody broke it down like that. And I just pick up that book and can read that and see it. Why hasn't the church been talking about this stuff to them people? They would. I'm telling you, if that stuff would have been broken down, they would have avoided all of this, like all that stuff that getting caught up in that music industry and all our stuff being fucked up like that, and Prince putting slave on his face trying to warn other people. All that would have been avoided. And I'm not saying that we wouldn't have did music. I'm just saying we would have been more diligent in just making sure that it's 100%. All that stuff that they pulled with all that 1960s integration, hell no. Them niggas would have been like, hell no. Hell no. When they, compared to when you had Tulsa, they would have kept trying to rebuild it. There's codes in there that tell, like, they would have kept trying to rebuild Tulsa from that happened in 1921. They would have kept trying to rebuild Mount Bayou. They would have kept trying to rebuild. It don't matter if they keep knocking it down. You got to go to war then. The fuck? The fuck? Somebody come and mob you. What you gonna do? They gonna just tear it down if we try to build it up. Okay, we got military science then. What the fuck? Because that's illegal. That's murder. That's illegal what they did to them people at Lake Lanier. That was murder. That was illegal. They drowned out a whole black town. Okay? It's spiritually illegal. It's earth-based illegal. It's universal law illegal. For one, that's very unnatural to manipulate the planet like that, the earth like that, to just build up fake lakes over towns and all that. But they did that because it was a prosperous black community and had some Jacobians in there. That's why when you go in that lake, you get your motherfucking ass pulled underwater, certain black people and certain white people. Not all black people get in trouble, though. There's people that go to Lake Lanier every week and go swimming and be fine, black folk, with boats and all. But then there's certain people that go and they get fucked up, drowned and pulled underwater, all types of stuff. Saying somebody pulled me underwater. You can still see the rubbish underneath the lake. And so this is some real shit that's about to pop off spiritually. I better wake up. You know, and I haven't been decoding all that stuff on in public like that. That stuff I've seen in the Bible, because I wish I had me a small church. I want to just teach some Negro children. You know, I think that the ancestors. I'll let that be the job of the ancestors to keep decoding. If they ain't telling me to go out there and teach that, I'm not going to teach that. They awaken that stuff. They have to awaken that stuff in the people. And they ain't asked me or nothing, so I but I think it would be very imperative at this time for them to know what that stuff is really about. Especially them codes about melanin. It wasn't just a kid, like how I thought. Because my mind is so analytical anyway. So yeah, I was hell yeah, I was very dismissive. I'm like, that sound like some that sound like crazy talk. But now you can see it. It's not as crazy as everyone's thought. And I'll say this, I got a little trigger hearing, the Rod Digga wants the Clive Davis thing, which I think she should. I'm just saying, we're going to have to make that ourselves. Now, who going to make it? Now, upon hearing this, Netflix probably will and them try to jump on it to make it seem, because they need y'all in that matrix. They going to do everything to undermine me, so they need y'all minds in a slave-ass matrix. Oh, they need it bad. So don't be shocked if they do throw a Hail Mary and just throw out that documentary just because y'all asked for it. They probably will, just to keep y'all in it. I don't think y'all realize that's why they copy so much of my stuff. Is like, don't follow what this person is doing. Make sure, just keep y'all minds in our stuff, but then they pivot you right back into slavery. It's always going to be a pivot back into total control and domination. That's the trick. But you can't see it because they practice in taciturn and shrouded warfare, dark psychology, the typical chess stuff, and They got black gate. They're going to have black people come out, of course. And, they got their puppets, But yeah, especially like, and I want to say this, like, y'all niggas need to get the competing again based on talent. Because, like I said, back in the day, Marvin Gaye and all them niggas, Stevie Wonder, Maze, Temptations, David Ruffin, they had to come out and bring the heat. They had to, Luther Vandross, they all had to compete at once. Same with the ladies. Today, you just want one motherfucker. I'm tired of seeing the same motherfucker on my screen for 20, 30 years. Get the, what the fuck? I'm tired. That's not even how you do music. That's not even how you do soul. That's not, that's just bullshit. That ain't how. I mean, if they good, then they good, and they work hard, and people deserve what they get, right? But I know for a fact that industry purposely blocks and lock out anybody with a lot of light. Like, they got the people that they want on a roster, and then it's like, this is the people we want you to look at all times and idolize. And then it's like, but it's not a natural it's not a natural ecosystem. That's why the music is suffering so bad. That's why it look the way it look. It's trash because of the ecosystem. They mainstream ecosystem is terrible. So now what I'm saying is we need to develop a parallel ecosystem where the shine is more natural. People gonna shine naturally. When what I don't like is that industry is suppressing people's shine. They suppressing people's talent, purposely, systematically going around and, like, even if that means make a phone call and blocking them in the algorithm, blocking this, blocking that, making sure nobody see this, and then they go and steal it. Like that weirdo shit. That's weirdo shit. That's fucking up the whole ecosystem. Of course, it's doomed. Of course, it's going to crash. Of course, people are going to get tired of it. Of course, people are going to wake the fuck up and realize it all sounds the same. Drill music is fucking terrible. Everybody's going to realize that's not real talent. Oh, that's manufactured. Oh, that's a plant. That's an industry plant. That's why I keep saying people talk about the industry plant. Get these, real recognized motherfucking real. If you're going to rise to the occasion, shit. If it's good, it's good. People will see it. People will know. Shit. People will know. People will see it. And so, like, you were pressing all this stuff, and then you won't put out some bullshit and then expect people to just keep riding along with it. They'll ride for so long, for some time, but they're going to realize it's bullshit. That's what I'm saying. You let them people infiltrate your damn music like that. Now your music sound like horse shit when you was the GOAT or the best. And you, honestly, I'm talking to Black America. Honestly, the architects are like sound like your music was like the best ever. Like our music, the best ever, with no effort, effortlessly. And now they come along, and now you followed them and all this stuff with these contracts and all this stuff, and now they just want to commercialize it, and it sounds like horse shit today. Mainstream stuff, that is. I'm not talking about a random person, I'm talking about the stuff that the mainstream stuff is putting out. Recycling the same song for 40 years. I just watched a documentary about them. They say they recycled the same song for 40 years. And that documentary was crazy because it really was the same sound for 40 years. Like, based on that mainstream stuff. And I was like, damn, that's kind of crazy. That's kind of scary. But this is what I'll say. Do the documentary if y'all want to see it. Let's see what happens. But I agree with her. I do think it should be made. Shit. Don't just get one person out. But I've been saying that for years. That it don't just stop with one person. If you get rid of Diddy, that you still going to have the same situation if we're going to go higher. So I've been calling out the CIA. Been saying, okay, it's deeper, it's deeper, it's deeper. But everybody else is scared. So how the fuck we going to get somewhere if it can't just be one person? It has to be a mass. It has to be in mass. Like I've been saying, it has to be millions. It has to be thousands that call this stuff out. It can't just be one person calling it out. They get knocked off, then what? They get blacklisted, then what? It has to be multiple. Can't just gaslight people. Oh, you just a one-hit wonder when it's black people been for years trying to tell us this shit. 30 years, 20 years. Black men and black women trying to tell us this shit, and you just laugh it off. Or they just conspiracy theorists. Or they just jealous they didn't make it. Bitch, they made it. They had more talent. And y'all better get up. Y'all better get real, man. Y'all better get real quick. On some real shit. Okay, let me get up on off of here. Bye.